Now it is the best time to start some discussion, open the floor, because I want to actually have some free willing discussion today. I will not be going into the nitty gritty of syllabus and preparation right away. I want to understand the class. I want to understand what you understand about history. First, let me ask you, how many of you come with a background of technical degree, engineering, BSc, doctor, etc.? Acha, about 60-70%. How many of you come from history background? Not a single person. Social sciences altogether? Okay, about 30%, 40%. And commerce वगैरह? No commerce person here. Okay. How many of you find history boring? Tell me honestly. I don't look at me. Look at yourself and tell me. How many of you enjoyed history during childhood, in schools, in exam? You enjoyed history. Seriously. This is going against my common sense. Maybe the times are changing, you know. Because when I started, I was always told history. I always loved history a lot. It's a different story that I did not do degree in history, unfortunately, fortunately. But uh, okay, we have half people who don't like history. Those of you who don't like history, can you tell me why you find history difficult or boring or tiresome? Or you can guess about others. Yes, ma'am. Wars are boring. You know, in Sanskrit, there is a story called Yuddhasya Katha Ramyaha. Yuddhasya Katha Ramya. The stories of war are actually romantic. It's a heroic, it's a chivalry. Right? But you don't like wars. Okay. I'll tell you one thing, fortunately, in UPSC, we don't study wars. Okay, there's certain part of history. Okay. Now, she is actually representative of entire generation. Modern India is perhaps more understandable, more likable, more relatable. We can see the relevance of it. But when it comes to ancient medieval, it is too remote in the past. That is one. Let us try to understand that only. Modern, ancient plus medieval. It is too remote in the past. Therefore, it is not relatable. Is that the reason? There is one more reason why sometimes people find ancient medieval difficult. Is because once you go to pre-modern era, you have to learn new language. If you go to uh, Vedic era, you have Sanskrit, old Sanskrit, Arsha Sanskrit. If you go to Buddhism, Jainism, you have Pali, Prakrit terms. If you go to South India, Sangam literature, you have to learn old Tamil terms. If you come to medieval time, maybe Farsi, Arabic, Urdu. So if you come to Bhakti literature, Avdi, Bengali, Marathi. So you are perforce exposed to linguistic diversity of India. And if you have no liking for languages, history becomes full of only facts and terminologies. But I think it is actually a very good thing about ancient medieval. Even not only ancient medieval, look at the world history. When you study world history, you know something of German, something Japanese, something Chinese, something Spanish, something Portuguese, some French, some African terms. All of these things come, even in our syllabus. So, linguistic diversity, you should not be worried about. It is not a difficult job and it is very small. Once you get used to it, you enjoy those things. So, I think that is sometimes a barrier in people's mind. Languages. I used to love language, so once upon a time I will learn Sanskrit. I did it for 6 months. I thought I will learn Persian. I attempted, I failed. Then I came down to Urdu only. And then Alif Bipete se Jim Che He. So those things I did. But language is actually enjoyable part. Coming back to this part, it is unrelatable. There is a Bollywood song from the Yor, very old song. सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई. पता है? You know that song? जो की थी लड़ाई तो मैं क्या करूं? So Sikandar fought with Porus. So what do I do? Why do I care? How is it related to me? So that becomes a major point. Then you also have one point, it is full of dates, facts, battles. So it is a factual overload. And that factual overload is because of two things. In our school system, the focus was always on memorization, overemphasis on memorization, and which is also called rectification. And then you have to just go and write it down in the paper to get the marks. So we are all Marxist people that way, right? But the point is, that is not the way you should learn history. History is about curiosity. It's about drama as well. There are stories, yes, there is analysis and insight also. One more point comes when we think of history as a difficult subject, is that it seems very subjective. You know, it seems very, there are many conflicting narratives about one side versus the other side, right wing, left wing, and religious, caste, feminist. All these narratives clash with each other, and we are perpetually confused. Ki bhai, what was the truth? What happened actually? Is it only just a Napoleon had said once, "What is history but a fable agreed upon?" It's a very, I love that quote. What is history but a fable agreed upon? It's a parikatha, it's a fable. If all of us believe it happened, it happened. We decide today what happened in the past. So, is everything really a narrative only? There is no fact. How many of you enjoy courtroom dramas in movies and series? Historian's job is like a courtroom drama. You're trying, you're a detective, you're a vakil, you discover the truth, you have evidences. And the argumentation, logic, causation go on. Anybody with LLB degree? You know? So in LLB, you have this context of you have to establish a crime. While we establish a crime, you have something called as elements of crime. Very basic thing, IPC, mens rea, actus rea, concurrus, correspondence. You know that? Mens rea, actus rea, re, concurrence, and correspondence. If I want to prove in the court of law that, what's your name? Monica committed a murder, I have to prove four things. Firstly, I need to show that she had intention to commit the murder. It was not just random accident or fit of rage or self defense or temporary insanity. So she was in full control of her body. She willed to murder. That is one. If there is no willing, then her culpability comes down. If somebody is forcing her, it comes further down. So you have the idea of intention is very high. Secondly, I should also prove that she actually committed a murder action. You know, in Bollywood movies, we used to have mocha and maksat, opportunity and intention. So intention is mens rea, and then mocha e vardat pe action you have to prove. So I have to show with some evidence, directly or circumstantial, that she is the one who has no alibi. She actually conducted a murder. These two things are also not enough. You go next. You have concurrence. That the intention was to murder only. Intention action should match with each other. I did not go to make love and ultimately I just killed the person. That is, intention and action should match. More importantly, correspondence. Intention should come before the action. अब मार दिया है तो ठीक है, इच्छा थी. It's not that. So you have to prove all these four things in the court of law to prove the crime, and the degree to which you can prove will decide the burden of culpability. So this is what happens in crime. Same things happen in history. You have to prove what happened and why it happened. So when I discuss what is history, it is not merely about what happened, it is also about why it happened. But is history all that remote, that theoretical, that distant from us? I always like to give this personal example of why I personally feel history is very close to me. When you look at a mirror, what do you see? Do you see only your face? You see entire evolutionary history. your nose, your eyes, your eyelashes, your cheekbone, everything is given to you by your parents, grandparents, and grandparents, great grandparents. These are not random features. Just in 3 to 4 generations, your great grandmother, you had four great grandmothers. They have huge impact on the way you look, massive impact. And most of you wouldn't even know their names. Maybe grandfather, grandmother, naam sune hai. Beyond that, we have no idea. Maybe some diary, some family kulavruttanta would have some data about it. But you presently standing here biologically and also your social actions, your cultural actions, your habits, your family culture, all of it is also shaped by these 4 generations. So you are the effect of all these things together, but you have forgotten these people. Now imagine this. You are trying to become IAS, IPS, IFS. Puri zindagi, you have to put everything on line to get there, to make efforts, to live full life. For what purpose? Within 3 generations, they will forget you. They will not know your name, as you don't recall their names. This is gonna happen. Things go vanish. So when look at the mirror, I feel I am history. There is very famous person called Will Durant. Have you heard of his name, Will Durant? Have you heard the name Will Durant? Will Durant wrote History of Civilization. There were time, आज से 50 years ago, when people used to write mega histories. That fashion is gone, that trend is gone now. But he is one of the mega history writer, history of the civilizations of the world. There are 13 great volumes. Will Durant. He has given a very famous quote. He says, "What is past and present?" He says, "Past is the present unrolled for understanding. Past is the present unrolled for understanding, and present is the past rolled up for action. Past is the present unrolled for understanding, and present is all the past rolled up for action." So that is history. Your body, your mind is nothing but accumulation of that evolution. So you are the product of history. That is at a very personal level. At the political level, there is no other subject as dangerous as history. I'm not joking. You in entire UPSC syllabus, you pick up any subject, you will see history is the most explosive, debatable subject. Every now and then in newspapers, you have some controversy. Every now and then, there is some amount of a debate about history getting rewritten in NCRTs. Every now and then, there is some movie coming up that creates some censor issues. Some communities hurt, some people are affected. So history is actually extremely powerful. You will see. Yuval Noah Harari, jante ho? Have you heard of name Yuval Noah Harari? He's a great author. Yeah, huh? Sapiens. Sapiens. That is an old book now. He wrote at least 4 books after that. But that book is very popular. Yes. 21st century, 21st issues, Nexus. है ना? So this Yuval Noah Harari has said at one place, क्या बोल रहा था भूल गया मैं उसके पहले. हाँ, yes. So he has said at one place that he has studied world history and he has not seen any government which bans science, which bans mathematics, which curtails the teaching of physics in schools. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world because the regime is never threatened by those things. If at all, they are helping. But history teaching is curtailed in every regime across the world. Every government is interested in what is being taught because if people are taught some things, then they ask some questions, and some questions could be uncomfortable to some people. Through history, you control mind of the people. So at both personal level and political level, history is explosive, history is important. So let me ask a question in a different format now, in a very different format. What is the purpose of history? Why to study history? A typical question they ask in, I discussed this in the first lecture, but this question is asked to the students in the last stage of preparation when you go for interview. Why do we study history? Or sometimes in essay also. What is the purpose of history? Today I have a very freewheeling lecture, no specific content as such. I just want to open up the topic for all of you. I will ask, please. Okay, so history helps in building identity, and to understand us, our identity, we need to study the history. You know, history has heroes, history has legends, history has heroic struggles, and those ideas shape our identity a lot, who we are. There are positive views about it and negative views about it also, about this identity issue. In Indian tradition, history was never academic subject. History was never academic subject. It was generally a didactic subject. You know what didactic means? You need to inculcate certain value in students, in pupils. You need to create some kind of value system, some moral lessons, some ethical precepts. For inculcating those values, sanskars in young people, you need a vehicle of stories, that is history. So history has a very lofty purpose, artha, dharma, kama, moksha, all those things. So it's a didactic. It is not purely academic exercise. It shapes our mind. It shapes our understanding. But that can also be misused a lot, a lot. So you have sometimes history being distorted, history being manufactured, history being changed to suit some purpose. And that also can cause massive disaster. You look at Pakistan today. I used to be a Pakistan fan some point of time ago. Fan matlab used to be very interested in understanding why this country functions the way it functions. I spent many years in that. Just to follow their news, read their books, uh, etc., to understand, to try to understand कि ये क्या है, why are they so ajib. So in that, I ultimately came back to the point. It's about one of the reasons. One of the reasons is history, the loss of identity. When partition took place, Pakistan had a one thing in mind, which is very clear: we are anything but Indians. हम Indian तो नहीं है. No, then who we are? If you go by the clothing, go by the food, go by the language, go by social mores, go by geography, everything is Indian only. But how do you now create a new identity? Then Pakistan started in search of identity. The first thing that they latched on, we are Arabs. So the first Arab invasion took place of India in Sindh. That is in 8th century by whom? Mir Qasim. For them, this is a foundation of Pakistan. The Delhi Sultanate is the first Medina. So this kind of thinking that we are the Arabs. But Arabs don't consider Pakistan as equal anyway. We saw recently in the last week there was news that lots of Pakistanis are deported from Arabic countries. They are not being given visas now because Arabs have their own racial profile. We are Bedouin, we are Qurayshi, etc. So they don't treat Pakistanis as equal. So Pakistan ultimately had long love lost. They thought, let me look for some other opportunity. So 1950s are gone, 60s are gone. Then they thought, oh, we are Central Asians because it is from Central Asia. A lot of invaders had come to India. We are their progeny. So they rewrote history in 1970s. Altogether, new textbooks to claim the roots in Central Asia. That went on for 20, 30 years. That did not work. In last 20 years, now they are going close to Turkey. So we are Turks. And our history go back to Khalifa of Ottoman, etc. and Istanbul. So that is a history. So Turkish series are very popular in Pakistan today. And we saw what happened in Sindur also. So so every 30 years they are trying to create new history because they want to shape new identity, and that actually has led. भाई बगल में देखो, look at your neighborhood. You are people of Indian subcontinent, full stop. You have a different country, okay, live well, live and let live, but that is not the point. So history plays a major role in shaping the identities. That is one thing. Apart from that, why is history important? If you control history, as I said, you control the narrative. There is a person called, there was a person called Churchill. Churchill, जानते हो? He was the British Prime Minister during World War II. Then he lost the election after winning World War II. So he said to one journalist after the World War II and losing election, he said, history will be kind to me. The same statement said by Manmohan Singh also earlier. Churchill ka statement original, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. History will be kind to me because I intend to write it. मैं खुद लिखूंगा. I will write history. What he was hinting at is it is decided by those who write history what the history will be. So who is writing history is extremely, who controls the narrative. That is also very important. In traditional Islam, in Islam also history is a very important discipline. After Sharia and Hadith, Sharia and Hadith, the third important thing to pursue intellectually is study of history, Tariq. It is given a very important place in Islamic civilization, history writing and history reading. Historically, हमेशा रहा है, but this point in the modern era that those who write history are the ones who control narrative, they shape identity. In British India also, we have seen that a lot. Starting from James Mill onwards, everybody wrote India's history, and they have shaped India's history. They have shaped our identity even today. So this is first point of identity. The second point, why to study history? एक basic thing है, you have to overcome this thing, so you have to learn and know your past. So history is about understanding the past. But it is not only about understanding past, it is through the past you want to understand the present. Through the past, you want to understand present. There was a thinker called George Santayana. You know George Santayana? Do you have reading habits? Do you like reading? What do you like to read? Don't tell me self-help books. ठीक है, आंखों से खून आ जाता है. But apart from, I'm not against self-help books. It's a big industry in India and the world. It is fine. But beyond that, what do you read? Yes. Ambedkar's book. Yeah. It's a fantastic book. Have you read it completely? Achha. I used to have 7 to 8 copies of it. I used to gift it to everybody. But I finished my copies recently, last week only. It's a very great book. But overall, what else do you read? Murder mysteries. Who is your favorite author? Oh, not Agatha Christie. Not Agatha Christie. Oh, I'm Agatha Christie fan. Anyway, apart from fiction, do you read non-fiction? No non-fiction reading. Okay, so I am giving these references of people. Have you heard of them? Churchill, etc. Sunna hai na? Okay. So this person George Santayana, another thinker. He said those who don't study history are condemned to repeat it. Those who don't study history are condemned to repeat it. So you have to learn the past so that you understand present and you don't redo the mistakes of the past. So you also draw some lessons of the past to avoid mistake. I'll give one famous example. Most famous example is that we have in India, Pakistan again, 1971 war. We had captured 94,000 soldiers of Pakistan, and then we let them go after Shimla Agreement. It's very debated today. Why did we not keep them imprisoned? Why did not torture them? You know, it was being discussed. Indira Gandhi at that time had the associates, all of which were very high level security experts, and most of them were Kashmiri Brahmins. So one of them was a DP Dhar. And DP Dhar advised Indira Gandhi on that. He said that look at the past. After World War One, after massive destruction of World War One, the way the victorious powers treated the losers. The way France, Italy, America, and UK treated Germany, Austria, etc. in Peace of Paris, that led to such a reaction from defeated countries within 2 decades. It led to Second World War. The roots of Second World War go back into the treatment meted out to the defeated parties by the victors after World War One. Directly, we don't want to commit that mistake. We want to settle the issue. It's not a perpetual cycle. And secondly, more importantly, Captain Saurabh Kalia, what happened to him? Now think of a situation of war between two countries. If you are an Indian soldier, you will fight till the end because you know if you are captured, what will happen. If you are a Pakistani soldier, you know what happens if they are captured. So, incentive to surrender quickly. So, you learn from the history a lot of things. So you don't want to repeat the mistakes of World War One to create World War Two. This is another way of reason of learning from history. You can't predict the consequences, but at least you can control some of them. One more thing I personally find important is learning empathy. You come to know different cultures, different civilizations, different people, different situations. Perspective gets broadened massively, and that creates a lot of empathy. When you come across any new person, you have larger framework in mind to understand that person. That helps a lot to become more empathetic person, a fuller person. Also, it helps a lot in civil services. The second point just after that is an academic point: develop rationality. Develop some rationality. History is as an academic subject. What is your objective is to find why something happened. And when you go for why something happened, you discuss different possible causes. So you're going into cause and effect analysis. And when you go into cause effect analysis, ultimately you are trying to understand why Buddhism arose, why was there decline of Mauryas, why Gupta era should be called as golden age or should not be called as golden age, what was the reason of decline of Buddhism, why Bhakti movement emerged in South India only and North India first, why we have the economic change, structural change in economy after Gupta till the medieval time. ये why वाला aspect, it becomes extremely important. When you start studying that, you become a very rational, very methodic person. You analyze the events, you weigh different causes, and you come across some conclusion. So that thinking pattern improves. And history is actually the fodder for all other social sciences. Could be anthropology, sociology, political science. They are theoretical parts. Data kahan se aata hai? Comes from history only. History is the stream that feeds data to every other single social science, without which they can't function. In turn, history uses all social sciences to study itself: polity, economy, society, everything. So it's a great field where everything comes together. This is academic aspect, rationality, and all social sciences. But I will tell you my personal reason to study history. One of the reasons I come to know everything is temporary. Nothing will last, neither good days nor bad days. If you don't like the political regime, don't worry, it will not last. If you like political regime, you should worry, it will not last. Everything is going to change, nothing is permanent. There is a very famous Sanskrit poet called Bhartruhari in the 6th 7th century. Bhartruhari, he wrote three shatakams: Vairagya Shatak, Niti Shatak, Shrungara Shatak, Subhashitamala. It's a poetry in Sanskrit. In Vairagya Shatak, he writes, Sa Ramya Nagari Mahan Sdrapati Samanta Chakram Chatat. Matlab, there was a great city and there were great king and he had lot of feudal lords and a great woman in the court and he had great princes who were warriors. Where is this all gone now? Everything is vanished in time. Only the memories have survived. Kalaya tasmai namaha. So this is like you get when you look at the longer time span, the problems in your life, of your family, of your struggle, they seem so tiny, so repetitive, that sometimes ego vanishes. We know what is going to happen, everybody. IS bano ya na mano, ultimate point, destiny for everybody is the same. And so you get a perspective towards life. That perspective helps us to remain grounded a lot. So that is my personal important reason towards learning history. But I will give you what should be your reason to learn history beyond all of this, to score in the exam. So to clear the exam, you have no option but to study history. This is also a very important reason. Sixth reason, exam. So this is about purpose of history. So we know history is, if you like it, don't like it, doesn't matter. It is very important. We have to study that. There is no option. But again, I want to come to first principles today. My first question again, sir is roasting Pakistan. Acha. Okay. I'll come Gauri there, huh? Just a moment. My now next question is, it is why history. Next question is, what is history? No, actually I'm not roasting Pakistan. I have friends in Pakistan also, personal friends. I'll tell you one interesting thing that happened recently, just for a few seconds. I used to work in a lab called Berg Nanotechnology Lab in Purdue University when I was doing my masters. And lab used to work in silicon microchips and a deep reactive ion etching. कुछ करते थे fab lab में. I used to be with white suit and zero dust environment. So I had a partner there who used to work on different project, but just besides me, he was a neighbor, and the neighbor was from neighboring country. So every afternoon we used to come out and used to have parle ji together, chai and parle ji, because we both enjoyed parle ji. So half an hour every after for almost 6 months we had tea and parle ji together in the break, and we get to know about each other a lot. He was sent to the university by the government of the neighboring country on some grant to do some PhD. And then I came back to India. I lost touch with him for 15 years. Not discussion at all, zero discussion with him. Just couple of months ago, I suddenly remembered him. What happened to Shoaib Saab? So I found him on LinkedIn. I sent him a message. He sent me a reply. We had some brief conversation. I got to know he was sent to Purdue by Pakistani Air Force. And in Lahore today, there is Pakistan Air Force Academy of some kind of university or college structure, and he is director of it. So I was excited. Let us find out some secret about them. And then within a few weeks, Pahalgam happened. I thought, let us not even talk to him. So I'm waiting for things to cool down. Maybe after a few months, I will send him another hi. Anyway, oh, this is on YouTube. Okay. So, what is history? Let us come to what is history now. How do you define history? Study of changes in the past. Let us focus on past first. Study of past. When you study the past, what do you study in the past? Origin and end of civilizations. Why? So again, you're trying to reduce it to some moral message, some guidance for your present time. That is fine. But when you study the past, whose past and which past? Do we have one past? If you go to, I think the NCERTs you studied in 7th, 8th standard, you have the chapter Our Pasts. Past is a plural. Why? Because every family has some different history. All of this may coalesce, it may not coalesce. I used to go to Arunachal. I had gone to Arunachal for a long time, and to in Itanagar. I stayed there for quite a bit time in 2015. So in Itanagar, before going there, I was trying to study the tribal history of Arunachal. It is there. I read one sentence in a book, a standard book, that Arunachal Pradesh has no history, it has only geography. How can this be possible? The humans are inhabiting that land. There are tribes there, people are living and dying and fighting. So how can it not have history? But when I read that properly, I got to know the meaning was something different. By history, the author means not just events, not just past. Study of past is of no use if it is the same thing recurring again and again. The people are rising, fighting and dying. उसका मतलब नहीं. Study of past makes sense when you try to trace some change. So study of changes and continuity, that is the main message. If there is no change, tribal history is going on for 1000 years. There is this is not a history. It's history is not the collection of events. History is actually the collection of events in the context of space and time. That is one thing. And secondly, it's about, as you said, it's about the change and continuity. These things are very important. Let us try to understand that. If I add one more thing here, plus it is study of sources also. So look, what is history called as in Indian languages? Itihas. What is itihas in Indian languages? Hmm? Itihas. That is true. But which books are categorized as itihas in our tradition? Ramayana, Mahabharata. In Indian tradition, Ramayana and Mahabharata are called itihas. That's the traditional categorization. I am not inventing it. But by the modern standards of history, would you call such books history? If you go by the old standards, the purpose of history is to inculcate some morality, some value system, then it makes perfect sense. But recently, what recent matlab इतिहास का recent 300 साल में, recently in last 300 years what has happened, there is rise of modernity. With the rise of modernity, it started in Europe somewhere. They introduced something called as reason, rationality, if you believe in that. ठीक है? Then in the, as per the rationality, they started to talk about study of past based on the sources. What is the evidence? What is the proof? So in the 17th 18th century, gradually in Europe, the two things got separated, history and mythology. Both of them are important part of human life. Both of them are important subjects of academia. But there was a separation of history from mythology from 17th 18th century onwards in Europe, and that is now there everywhere. So now, in the modern technical terms, we can't call these books as history. Why? Because we can't prove with evidence what happened. So you come back to sources. Sources, if they are there, if they can prove something in the past that happened, then only that can be termed as history. Otherwise, it is what we believe in, a fable agreed upon, as Napoleon says. आप भी मानो मैं मानता हूँ, हो गया. It is not history. It has to be provable, testable, verifiable fact. Secondly, once you have these facts, you can't just have facts randomly floating in the sky. You have to put them in time and space. When it occurred and where it occurred. History is a chronological science. So time and space become extremely relevant. Otherwise, history doesn't have legs to stand upon. So time and space sequential pattern is extremely important. Let us say you establish fact A, fact B, fact C. You know the sequence A comes first, then comes B, then comes C. But history doesn't stop there. By establishing space and time of the events, you have to go one stage ahead and then talk about what is the correlation from A to B, from B to C. So that is about causation. This is extremely important part of history, causation. Why it happened the way it happened. And historically, there are many reasons for it. For example, if you go to old books, why the world was created. If you go to, for example, Quran Sharif, we have the story of Kun Faya Kun Faya Kun Faya Kun. You know that song, Kun Faya Kun. It's a phrase from Quran Sharif. What does it say? It's about how the world was created. Once upon a time, the God wanted Kun Faya Kun, so it was created in moments time. If you read Bible, Old Testament, the first chapter, Genesis. Have you read Bible? है ना? So first chapter Genesis, God created world in 6 days. On seventh day He rested, so we have Sunday ka chutti. I'm not joking. This is the mythological origin of Sunday. Why seventh day? Why not ninth day? Why not fifth day? Because God rested on Sunday. In the old Christian religions in Europe, if you work on Sundays, महापाप था. Sunday को आराम करना religious duty थी, right? But my main point is that origin in such kind of story or anything, why it happened? Because in Greek stories, in Roman stories, the Farishtas entered. The elements from the heaven come on the earth and they guide human action. So there is a divine volition. The first type of causation is why? Because God wanted it to happen. Divine volition. That kind of thinking is pre-modern thinking. Pre-modern thinking. Now the second causation which is possible is because we wanted human volition. Here also you write the history ki why there was establishment of Mughal Empire, because Babur was great fighter, Akbar was great institution builder. This is human volition. Why the World War One occurred? Because of Bismarck. Why World War Two occurred? Because of Hitler. Napoleon was great. Alexander was great. In Arthashastra of Kautilya, ये पूछा है, it is asked if time is great or a person is great. If that question is arising in your mind, don't worry, Raja Kalasya Karanam. The man creates the time and not vice versa. आपके दम, if you have that capacity, if you have that ability, you will make the changes happen. So great man theory, as it is called, human volition. So the sequence of events is explained in terms of great men deciding to do something in some way. This is another kind of causation. First was the divine will, second was the human volition. Then we have other things. For example, if you come to structural aspects of society, oh, this is the class system. We have proletariat and we have the bourgeois. So class system has its own dynamic. Individuals don't matter. It's a structure of economy, structure of politics, structure of society. These things change history. These things shape history. So we should not study individuals. What we study is change in the structures of society. So here we have lots of deterministic aspects, economic determinism, geographic determinism, etc. So we don't have environmental determinism. We don't have control. आप और मैं क्या है? Sometimes there are cultural explanations, intellectual explanations about behavior, habits of community, etc. That is another causation. The best thing I love is its randomness, its element of luck, it's stochastic also. Now, if you understand reality, actually a mix of all of them. There has to be, if you believe in the God, some divine element. If you don't believe, it's okay. Then there has to be some capacity among you. Hard work to karna. If you want to clear UPSC, become IAS. How you will become IAS? Is it because you are very talented? Is it because you read something luckily that question came? Is it because जिस दिन exam थी or on the day of exam you were very tired, you were ill, so you failed? It's a luck. Or is it because you come from the family which has money, which has resources, which has given you good schooling and good education and everything, so you know everything already? क्या है? Is any single reason a guarantee of your success? It's mix of all of them and still some element of chance. So we control what we can control, we don't what we don't. So when you come to events happening, it is actually causality may mix of all of them, but historians take this causation very seriously. Based on that, they fight with each other. For example, I'll give you the most controversial example: temple destruction. We don't have that in our syllabus. Don't worry. But just for the sake of dramatic understanding, why were temples sometimes destroyed? Somebody would say it is religious reason. He was a Ghazi person. दिल में ईमान की आग थी, बुत शिकन था. Somebody will say, no, no, what is religion in that? If it was religious, then why did he not destroy the temples in Afghanistan first? Why did he have to come across all the way to India to find some temple to destroy? It was actually economic reason. Temples are repository of gold and donation. He was a plunderer. He didn't care about whether it was temple or not. He wanted money. Then third person proved, no, no, it's not true, because he did not just looted the temple. He then destroyed the murti also. It cannot be purely only economic. It is political reason. Why political? Because that murti was installed by that king. That murti was the symbol of status of that king. I want to announce to the world that king is defeated. He can't even protect his own gods now. It's a political reason. So economic, political, religious. What is the causation? It's a debate. I can't take a side, you don't take a side here. But my main point is that it is a debate of ideology. It's a debate of causation. Why something happened. So history is about causation. History is about analyzing the sources. In mythology, you can't prove the sources. In history, you have to go to sources. Sources come in various types. For example, mostly it derives as literary and archaeological. This is very simple to understand. Literary sources and archaeological sources. Literature. It could be religious literature, Vedas and Tripitakas. It could be foreign travelers like Fahian and Yuan Sang, Al Baruni and Marco Polo. It could be a drama of Kalidas. It could be poetry. It could be a technical treatise like Arthashastra and Kama Sutra. It could be anything. So different type of literary sources are there. Depending on their quality, depending on their type, we can use them as material for history. And then in case of archaeology, you have physical material. You can have the potsherds, you can have the broken bones, you may have the old city completely gone now. You have to dig under the ground and find out the city like Harappa. Or you may have inscriptions. The study of inscription is called as, anybody? Epigraphy. Epigraphy. It may be coins. I always carry this coin. I want to show that to you. Kahan pe? I have a coin with me all the time. It's a silver Karshapana of 6th century BCE Magadha. So 6th century BC matlab time of Gautam Buddha. So this was original coin, a silver Karshapan of Magadha Mahajanapada at the time of Gautam Buddha, or maybe 1500 years aage piche. I wish that I want to believe that it was handled by Buddha also one day. Who knows? You never know. But it is also, it may be coins tell us a lot of history. What is the material? What is the symbol? Where was it found? How was it used? Who minted it? What is the portrait on it? What is script? Dating, metal, technology of formation. All these things give me a lot of political, economic, social, cultural, artistic history. So we have inscriptions, we have artifacts, we have coins. So these all things come into archaeological sources. So type of sources change the history, the way you write also changes. Sometimes you have only some sources and not sources. For example, go to Harappa. In Harappa, you only have archaeology, you don't have literature. You don't have literature. So your understanding is limited to only part of the reality. But what do you find in archaeology? Generally, things which are refused. जो फेंक दिया जाता है. Things which are good are consumed. You don't find them. So archaeologists work on refused things. And from refused things, you have to recreate history. It is not easy. It is partly destroyed, partly gone. You know, my teacher used to say that writing history, recreating history is like a job of fire inspector. What is fire inspector? What does he do? He goes to the place which is burnt down, and then from there he has to imagine how the place was. This is historical field. Everything is gone. What we have is burned down thing. From there you have to imagine what the history was. It is a very difficult job. So in Hadappa, you only have the burnt down or the refused, discarded material. Exactly opposite is in the Vedic era. In Vedic era, what we have is literature, literature, literature. Different Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. Where is the physical material? Show me one village of Vedic people. You can't. We don't have archaeology of Vedic people. We don't have literature of Harappan people. For us to get a full, well-rounded vision of past event, past history, we need to have as many diverse sources as possible. So understanding is limited. Sometimes we have both types of resources, archaeological also, literary also, and they don't match. They give us conflicting perspective. Then what to do? Is this true or is that true? That is the next level. That historian's job is extremely difficult. You have to put your bias aside, try to think a lot, find logical conclusion. It's not easy. I'll give an example. There's a king called Pushyamitra Shunga. Have you heard of him? So in literature, it is said that he was anti-Buddhist. He killed a lot of Buddhists. He destroyed a lot of viharas and monasteries. He put the, the price of 100 dinars on the cut head of every Buddhist. This is a story that we have heard since childhood. But if you go to this is the story that comes from literature, Buddhist literature. If you go to archaeology, it is in his era, in his domain, in his land. You have beautiful stupas getting funded, getting constructed. It could be Sanchi, it could be Bharhut, it could be Gaya. How is it possible that on one hand, literature says you are anti-Buddhist, on the other hand, on ground, archaeology says that you are funding Buddhism massively? Conflict of perspective to ho raha hai. Then you have to resolve the conflict. You have to say either of them is lying. Archaeology never lies. Physical artifacts never lie. Literature may have some bias. Now, then you have to justify and argue what the bias was and why the bias was. Literature may have bias which is intended, which is unintended. What is intended bias? Like here, that I am not funded, so I will make you villain. For example, it could be one possible reason. What is unintended? कही सुनी बातें. Example देखो, that there was some person, like आपकी बात करें, आपका नाम क्या है? सोना. Sona, what do you think is happening at Karol station right now? Right? Yes. So this is her perspective, that she is talking about students coming and going from Karol metro station. What if I call somebody who is standing at the station and ask the same question? What would that person tell me? Something like this. Let us say that person says me story A, you are telling story B. If there is conflict, whom should I believe? Because he is eyewitness. So even in literature, you have eyewitness literature, you have contemporary literature, you have people who are far away in space and time from the event that occurred. So further you go away in space and time from the event, you are less and less authentic, you are less and less reliable. The closer you are to the event in space and time, you are more reliable. You have to grade literature also. So based on that, we call something as primary source and secondary source. And likewise, we have such many other things. So we'll discuss all this in detail. So I just wanted to introduce basic terms. Then you come to change and continuity. Change and continuity. Here, what do we have? Is history the same story? No, it changes with time. What does change? What is the change? Perspective. Okay, let me come to that. Your good point. There is a very famous book, a small book. What is history? Have you read that book? By a famous historian called E.H. Carr. He gave in 1960, early 60s, Cambridge lectures. All these three lectures are published in a book called What is History by E.H. Carr. A very famous statement given by him. What is history? He says history is a continuous dialogue between past, and present. So when we discussed just a few minutes ago that history is study of past, he says no. History is not the study of past. History is study of a dialogue between past and present. Now I will tell you why. Think of Shivaji. You know Shivaji, Maratha ruler. So Shivaji was portrayed in some manner by his contemporaries, like Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb never liked Shivaji. He used to call him Pahad ka Chuha, the mountain rat. Okay? He is closer in time and space, but he is the enemy of Shivaji. You come just a few decades after Shivaji's death. You come to Peshwa era. In Peshwa era, it is said that Shivaji founded Hindu Pada Patashahi. Another perspective. Then you come to the freedom struggle. We have two great people. One person is Tilak, other is Mahatma Phule. Now, Tilak conceived Shivaji's character and story as Hindu story, and Phule talked about him as the deliverer of the oppressed. Same person, same events. Look at the perspective is changing. Then you come to post-independence. We have Mumbai mein Shiv Sena. So Shivaji became a Marathi hero. Then you come to 1990s, 19 to 2000, etc. You have the movement going on for Maratha reservation. So Shivaji is now a Maratha hero. The same person, same events are looked at differently by different era. Is the past changing? No, past is not changing, but the present is changing. And with the change of present, our perspective of past changes because the kind of questions we are asking change. I'll give you example from syllabus. You know Harappan civilization. We know it declined. Why it declined? There is debate about it. Back in the days in 1940s and 50s, it was said it declined because of the invasion of Aryans. Why? Because the British had invaded India. They thought everything is invasion only. Then we have other possible theories. Today, we talk about environmental change, climate change. Why? Because we are suffering from that today. Maybe after 20, 30 years, our present will change. Our way of looking back at history will also change. So the past may remain constant, but the present changes. That also is one reason why the history is looked at differently in different eras. So now let me ask you another question. What are the reasons for which, therefore, we go for rewriting of history? Rewriting of history. They are dead. They are long gone. They don't bother about your and my justice. Yes. Okay. Ye- Okay. I'll take a detour. There's a great thinker called Edmund Burke. You know Burke is a great British thinker at the time of French Revolution, and he was a very conservative thinker because French were radical. He was conservative. So Burke ने एक statement, एक quote दिया है, बड़ा अच्छा quote है. It's not about history, but it is related to what you want to say. He talks about society. What was happening that in French Revolution, it was the first modern political major revolution which destroyed the past, which said let us create the society from scratch anew. We don't want our past. Burke says no. It creates lots of chaos. We don't want such instability in society. So past also has some value. So Burke ने क्या कहा? At one place he says that what is society? But unsaid pact between the living, the dead, and yet to be born. Society is an unsaid pact between living, between you and me, the dead, and yet to be born. So I think you are politically conservative person. somewhat. See, it becomes very easy to see those things. But anyway, that is not the main thing. My main point is, why the need arises to rewrite the history. First need is that you find new sources. I'll give you example of origin of the earth only. Think of this. As per the Bible, the world was created 6,000 years ago. As per the Puranas, the world was created during Manvantara, Manu, Aya, etc. When the British came to India, they found that Puranic story of Manu is little later. The Vedic story is the older. Vedas are the oldest. That is the beginning of human civilization in India. Then you come a little later, you have the discovery of Harappa. Suddenly, Harappa is older than Vedas. Our history goes a little backwards. So, what is happening now? The point of origin of Indian history is shifting with newer and newer data points becoming available, newer and newer sources becoming available. So, as you find new sources, you have to rewrite your books. You can't deny the facts. You have to rationalize with them. You have to debate with them. You have to argue with them. You have to draw inferences, but you can't deny the facts. That is one. Sources. Secondly, sometimes sources don't change, but technology changes. From the same source, you are able to derive more data because you have better science now. You have manuscript, you can just read it. Now, carbon dating, you can age it. So, same manuscript will give you more data of different type because you have improved technology. Initially, you had only potsherd. You know the location, you know the color of painting on the pot, you know the potter's mark, etc. Now you can go for thermoluminescence, argon dating. So you know the age of that pot also. So new technology from the same source material can help you extract better data. Initially, you do not have ancient DNA technique. Now you have genetics. From the same skeletons, you can bring out more data. Was the person having any disease, etc. So science improves. Then the next point of why we have to read history is your theory changes. Theory or framework with which we write history. I could be a colonial historian. I want to show Indians as, I have a colonial historiography. Then I am a Marxist historian. I am a national historian. I am Gandhian. I am Dalit. I am feminist. I am environmentalist. I am subaltern. I could be anything. So my perspective, my framework of causation changes with that history with the same set of data also change. And finally, the present changes. 100 years ago, when the history of Vedic era was written, religion, political structure were more important aspects. In 1960s, 70s, we have study of society, social history becoming very important. So suddenly we got interested into caste, varna, gender. We wrote history of that from the same Vedic literature. Then in 1990s came 1980s and 90s subaltern history. So we have Uma Chakravarti saying, whatever happened to Vedic Dasi? Very famous professor Uma Chakravarti. She is retired now in JNU. But now you are asking different questions. So the present concerns are changing. Recently, we want to focus on environmental history. So what was Vedic environment like? Flora and fauna, animals and flowers. Their relationship of civilization with forest, with nature, with aranya. So with same data set can give us different answers if the questions that we ask change. I always tell this story. When I came to ORN for the first time, 2012, I went to shop. I don't know whether the shop still exists. I wanted to have one history book. I asked the person, Bhaiya, please give me this book. He went inside the shop. He came out after 2 minutes. He had a very old copy of that book, very old edition. He was dusting it and gave it to me. I looked at it. It was edition at least 4 years older. I told him, Bhaiya, this is old edition. Please give me latest edition. He looked at the book. A history book. Hai. What will change in history in 4 years? Take this copy. Past would not change, obviously, but the present would change. UPSC will ask four different questions. So the way we look at history, the way we read textbook will evolve. So history changes with every. So these are the reasons why you have to go for constant rewriting of history. History rewriting is not a bad thing. You see in newspaper nowadays, ancient is being rewritten. In per se, they must be rewritten every 15-20 years. Otherwise, it will become stagnant. The question is how and what are being rewritten. What is the new idea that is coming? Is that rational? Is that not? Just rewriting is never a problem. Rather, not rewriting is a problem. But what do you rewrite? How do you rewrite? These are the questions. But constant rewriting is necessary in history. Okay. So this is my just basic introduction.